The fire crackled in the hearth. The flames danced a mesmerizing jig. Sarah huddled deeper into her oversized armchair. The book in her hands lay forgotten. It was a dark and stormy autumn night. The wind howled outside like a banshee. Rain lashed against the windows. She was alone, but she was cozy and warm. She took a sip of hot chocolate. The sweet, warm liquid spread through her. She sighed in contentment. The storm raged on outside, but inside, all was peaceful, for now. A noise startled her. A soft thud. It seemed to come from the front door. Sarah frowned. She put her book down on the coffee table. She listened. Silence. Maybe it was just the wind. She tried to ignore it. She picked up her book again, but the sound came again. A knock. Faint, but definitely a knock. Sarah's heart pounded. Who would be out on a night like this? She set her book down. She slowly got to her feet. She crept towards the door. Her hand hovered over the doorknob. She took a deep breath and threw the door open. The wind howled into the house. Rain lashed at her face, but there was no one there. The porch was empty. Sarah shivered. It must have been the wind. She closed the door and bolted it. She leaned against the door, her heart still racing. Then she heard it again, the knocking, but this time it was at the back door. It was louder now, more insistent. Fear coiled in Sarah's stomach. She backed away from the front door, her eyes wide with terror. How could that be? She had just checked. The knocking grew louder, more urgent. Sarah was frozen in place. She couldn't move. She could only listen in horror. The knocking was relentless. It was like the person outside was desperate to get in. Section 5. The walls have eyes and ears. But then she realized something. The knocking wasn't coming from the back door anymore. It was coming from the walls, from inside the walls. It surrounded her. The knocking turned into a rhythmic pounding. It seemed to pulsate around her. Her heart hammered in her chest. She felt trapped. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Section 6. The Invaders Within. Panic welled up inside her. This was impossible. The sounds were coming from everywhere at once, from every wall, every corner. Something was inside the house with her, something evil. She pressed her back against the wall, her eyes darting around the room. She searched for any sign of an intruder, but there was nothing. The room was empty, except for her, and the terrifying sound of knocking. Section 7. Face to face with fear. And then it happened. Right before her eyes, the wall began to bulge inwards. The knocking sounds intensified, centered at the point of the bulge. A deep crack snaked its way across the plaster. Then, with a deafening crack, a huge chunk of the wall ripped open. A dark figure emerged from the opening. It was tall and thin. Its skin was deathly pale. Its eyes glowed red in the dim light. Its long, sharp claws scraped against the floor as it stepped out of the wall. Section 8. A haunting silence. Sarah screamed. She scrambled backwards, her eyes fixed on the terrifying creature before her. Her mind raced. What was it? Where did it come from? But there was no time for answers. The creature turned its head towards her. It opened its mouth in a silent snarl, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut. She couldn't bear to look. She braced herself for the worst, but it never came. Section 9. The Aftermath. She slowly opened her eyes. The creature was gone. The hole in the wall remained. A gaping wound in her reality. The only evidence of the nightmare she had just witnessed. The silence was deafening. The storm outside had subsided. The only sound was the crackling of the dying embers in the fireplace. Sarah sat there on the floor, her body trembling. She was alone. Or was she? Section 10. The Unanswered Question. The question echoed in the silence of the room. Where had it gone? And would it return? Sarah didn't know. All she knew was that she would never be truly alone again. For she knew the truth. The walls had eyes, and they were watching. The end?